This is a crazy story coming out of Kansas, and really, in many respects, a tragic one too. Um, the Marion County Record in Kansas was a newspaper, and I don't know if this happened on Friday, I guess. Police they were doing a story on someone who apparently had DWIs. It's sort of unclear what the story was, but it was a local restaurateur, and somehow the Marion County Record was given, it sounds like, information about this restaurateur. It's unclear what it was. It read things to the effect that there was a DWI case that maybe was somehow expunged or something to that effect. And what it sounds like is that this restaurateur had some connections with the police department. The police department got a search warrant from a local judge. And to be clear, this is largely considered illegal. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think broadly, or I should say uncontroversially, considered illegal for a police department to go in and, because the press has a unique position in our society, constitutionally speaking. And the police raided the small newspaper's offices in Marion County, and then raided the home of the journalist, which was also the home of one of the owners of the newspaper, a woman named Joan Meyer. Her son was the reporter. She was 98. They took all of the computers in the home. They took all of the devices. They took all of the internet connections.
Her Alexa thing she relied on for her television shows. Like, I mean, that kind of consistency, very necessary in your older age. And, yeah. And she passed away the next day. The story, because there was a tremendous amount of stress. I mean, to have the police raid your house, and it was so disturbing to her. I mean, the story itself would be highly problematic, that police feel comfortable going in and raiding because they want to prevent a story from being published. And again, there is some precedent for major newspapers when they get a hold of information that may compromise the life of, let's say, U.S. spies or the national security in some significant way, that they will then reach out to, the government and negotiate what can be printed, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea that a story that was brewing, and my understanding is that apparently, like, they didn't even write the story. They informed the police department that they had this information, because presumably it was something that they felt the police department should know. The police department apparently were basically, rather than responding to the information they had, were determined to find out how they got this information. Mm-hmm. In other words, from their sources. And so there's some real constitutional issues, and I would be surprised if we don't hear anything from the DOJ within the next week. I'm sure we're going to hear something today or tomorrow from their spokespeople, but then we're going to start to see some actual activity, because this is just stunningly wrong. Do you have a clip of this? Did you put the tear sheet up? Yeah, and I mean, here's the Marion County Record. And also, just want to point out, this was signed off on by a judge named Carrie Newell, and especially in some of these local instances, it's clear how intertwined the local judges are with the cops. It's a green light, basically, for whatever they want to do.
I mean, that's like the sort of dynamic you'd watch for like an American authoritarianism or sort of totalitarianism. Is this sort of
Well, there's two stories here, right? I mean, one is the sort of authoritarianism that we see where local judges, cops don't feel like it's necessary for them to pay attention to the Constitution if they feel like they have reason not to. And the other is we have a problem with cops in this country. It is a different dynamic from it's a different dynamic based upon where you're situated in society as to how what the implications of that problem with the cops are. But once the analogy I think could be like the fascism you practice in the West Bank ultimately is going to be practiced
right?
in Tel Aviv. But in this instance, if cops feel comfortable doing this, I hope it becomes clear what they're comfortable doing, to people who don't literally have a newspaper to report it in.
Yeah. And I just, a little bit of a petty point, went to Barry Weiss's website, the Free Press for Free People, searched Marion County, yet to see an article published on there, You're just worried. People worried about First Amendment violations, press freedom, just not so concerned about this story. It's odd.
Well, that's because Barry Weiss is probably too busy covering the story of
Crypto risks?
AP African American studies being canceled in Arkansas. I'm sure that's probably taking up all of their
Their time over there.
all their page space.